And that's it, folks. So I think we can
Absolutely.
get going.
Absolutely, absolutely. As the number keeps climbing, we're approaching. Well, we're over. We're just over about 300 people on here, so I think we've broken the in-person record. So again, can't thank everybody enough for spending their time. I know everybody's lives have changed the last little bit, so we want to thank you. Tonight is we are celebrating. This is our 3-year anniversary of the Reite Club. 3 years ago, myself, Daniel, and Laurel Simmons, Daniel St. John, and Sarah Larby, the four of us kind of got together, started talking about how we can provide value and help answer questions in good times and in bad about what people are doing in real estate, connecting more people together and getting more information. So if you haven't, if this is the first time maybe or your first introduction to the Reite Club and you've seen some of the Facebook lives and things that we've been doing, just know that we've been doing this for 3 years now. This is our third anniversary, and we're really excited to be here and providing this online tonight as we adapt and change. And that's going to be a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight, how we're going to sustain and build our real estate investing businesses. So on behalf of Laurel and Daniel and Sarah, thank you very much for being here tonight. And yeah, maybe we can get a little bit of the founders, like, remember where we started 3 years ago, right? And stuff, building from a point of really just the four of us really, and then going from there. So we originally scheduled to be in person with in Burlington tonight, but and our speaker is going to be the unstoppable Tracy. So I want to make sure that you guys make note of that. If you haven't heard of her, she is just a wonderful, wonderful, inspirational person. If you haven't heard, honestly, just Google Unstoppable Tracy. She's a great inspiration. And what she's offered, because we weren't able to do this, she's offering a downloadable copy of the, there we go. Are we back on video? There we
There
go.
we are. Hi, everybody.
There we go. Yeah, I'm getting used to this kind of stuff. Good thing I wasn't picking my nose or anything, right? But yeah, so she's offering a downloadable copy of her book. So make sure you check that out. Use the Reite Club name, and she'll definitely do that. But yeah, what we're trying to do here is provide practical, qualified information for those of business and real estate investing. We're bringing some of the best experts tonight. I am super pumped, super pumped for tonight. I don't know, maybe I'll throw it to Sarah or Daniel or Laurel. One of you guys jump in. Who are you guys like excited to talk about as I go through this lineup here in a second?
To talk with?
Well, yeah, just to hear from. Yeah, just to hear from what's going on. Maybe not one person, but just kind of an idea that you're interested in right now, the top priorities.
I think for me, it's just there's a lot of noise and a lot of things that we're hearing, and I'm just looking for like what is actual, what's the actuality of it. There's a lot of there's a lot of noise, basically. Let's get down to it and let's figure out like, okay, this is actually what's happening. This is how it actually works. Mortgage deferrals, this is actually how it is. And then just get some answers. And I know there's changes every single day. So tomorrow might be a different thing and the day after might be a different thing, but I'm really looking forward to getting that insight. And also just speaking to people that are the experts in different fields or the experts in different markets. I think that's going to be exciting.
Yes, because one of the things is that this is the, like, I'm on my own webinar tonight, but I was on one yesterday and one the night before and one the night, whatever. This is the fourth or fifth one this week. And sometime I was taken aback a little bit when a realtor was giving legal advice, or when an accountant was talking about, dealing with the tenants and stuff. So what we've done is, we've invited people who are specialized. We've invited an accountant and a lawyer and somebody who knows all about the landlord and tenant board, and an economist to talk about the economy, not somebody who's just an investor, somebody who's an economist. So we went out of our way to get, the right people to answer, to talk about what's happening in all of those different, spheres.
Yeah. I think it's really important right now that we all go to the experts, and that we go to people who not as much as I enjoy social media, and I know everybody does, I see so much crap, and I'm just going to call it. It is crap out there. People are just throwing out stuff. They're fear mongering. They're doing all kinds of things that sorry, I don't believe it. And I just turn it off. So we like to use this venue to help people, like disperse the information that is as good as it can possibly be. And that's why we've gone to the experts. And you know what? I am really excited to share the interview that I did with Benjamin Tal. It was such an honor for me to speak to the deputy chief economist of the CIBC. So that's going to be really interesting. And you have to stay to the end though to hear it. So hey, lots of cool stuff coming up. What do you think, Joe?
Yes, absolutely. And the one part that is going to be really unique, I guess if we can look at it on the positive side, and that's, a lot of us real estate investors, that's what we're trying to do, is be realistic about all this noise. But one of the big positives is we get to interview a panel from coast to coast in this country of different market areas, right? I know, the Reite Club was founded in Burlington in that GTA area, but we are spanning across the country and more connecting with different people across this amazing country. And as all of the citizens of this country have been impacted, and real estate investors and everyone else, really, we're connecting with those people across the country and knowing what's going on. So we have an amazing lineup. You guys have all touched upon it, right? We have Harry Fine, who's going to be here he was a former adjudicator. Laurel did an amazing interview with the deputy economist. I think they even talked about Christmas cookies on there, so you want to make sure you check that out. The Q&A with our trusted partners and our sponsors, that's going to be amazing, looking from a perspective of those exact areas that you should be focusing and talking to your trusted partners. So again, I want to remind everybody, if you guys have questions, put them in the chat. Okay, I'm going to put you right here. Okay, so put those in the chat. Question, but put a big Q, capital Q, and then put the name of the panelist and who we're going to. So I'm going to throw it over to Daniel, and he's going to just quickly review all of our sponsors, who I want to thank as well too for being part of this night's evening and being part of the Reite Club long before COVID or coronavirus ever showed its face.
And just before Daniel starts, I do want to say something that you have to understand that this is the first time we've done this, and Paul Copcott and Catherine Nelson Riley have been working so incredibly hard to help us pull this together. This is a big deal, but we're so excited to be here. And so thank you guys. I want to say that up front so we don't forget. So Daniel, over to you.
All right. So big shout out to our sponsors who have joined us virtually. You'll see their top tips for sustaining and building your real estate investing business during a crisis, scrolling along with their website. We've already done that at the beginning, and they'll probably come back again. But be sure to reach out to them for their expertise. And even though this is not on my script here, I will say what I say when you come live to our events. So the people you see on this right there on your screen, each of and every one of them has a table at our events when you come live to Burlington. When that will be next, we don't know. But those people normally would be all around the room. And what I say every time at the live events, you come for the content, you come for the networking, but if you're smart and you start from one end of the room and walk all the way around and talk to everybody and collect their information, by the end of the evening, you have your full team, absolutely your full team of people that you need to build your business. We have Elevation Realtor, Carson Law, lawyer, Hub International, insurance broker, Mission 35, mortgages, BDO accounting, Windrose Group, mortgages, Blackjack Contracting, that's pretty self-evident, Pinnacle Wealth for management, that's Steve Blasiak, King Homes Legal Second Suites, Artex Property Management, Cashflow Tribe, Private Money for Mortgages, Private Lenders, and Akis Home and Commercial Inspection. So you go around the room, by the time you leave, you have everybody you need to build a business. And now we're going to go to the next segment.
Over to Sarah.
All right, Alfonso and myself. So Alfonso, do you want to introduce who is going to be on our first panel?
Absolutely. So so Sarah's actually going to be, you guys all know Sarah Larby, the Sarah Larby podcast, Where Should I Invest? And she's my co-host on the Reite Club podcast. And she's going to be hosting these amazing experts on our panels. So first of all is Ryan Carson, real estate investing focused lawyer out of Burlington, Ontario. So Dan Tetzlaff from Hub Insurance, Amazing insurance broker. If you want to talk, this is probably a good time to talk about that. Law, insurance. We're bringing in the big guns here, guys. And thank you so much for all of us for joining us. George Dubé, BDO in accounting. From the Windrose Group, Emil Jelnik, thank you so much for being here. And someone that we've all been kind of hearing a little bit more about, and you're making some noise, Kayla, and it's so amazing. Thank you so much for all your efforts. But Kayla Andrade from Ontario's Landlords Watch. And this is what this call is about, us uniting here tonight. So I'm really looking forward to this panel. And go ahead, Sarah, take it away.
Amazing. Welcome, guys. How's everyone doing? Feel free to unmute yourselves. And I'm super excited to have, in my opinion, some of the best experts to be able to really help us decipher through this chaotic time and understand the industry. So first question, and feel free to, I'll answer that as much as you can. The first question, because obviously you guys are experts in your field, what can you share with us? You know, if you're a mortgage broker, as an example, from a mortgage broker insider point of view, or an insurance broker inside view, what is happening in your industries and what insights should we be aware of as real estate investors?
Do you want me to start, Sarah?
Go for it.
All right, awesome. So Emil Jelnik here, mortgage broker with the Windrose Group. So wanted to give an update on the mortgage market. There's certainly been a lot of changes, and it's still ongoing daily. So the good news is that lenders are still open for business. You know, we are on the essential services list, so we will be open throughout the crisis, or at least as far as we know right now. Lenders are still lending money, so that's a good thing. Officially, there has been no changes to the way that files are underwritten or anything like that. They haven't changed guidelines. Unofficially, they are being more cautious, right? They know that there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, and so they're underwriting deals accordingly. So that's something to keep in mind. If you've been paying attention, rates have been going up recently, which is kind of strange, because typically we look at the market indicators such as bond yield rates. The Bank of Canada has just dropped their rate, 1%, in a 2-week period. So we would expect that interest rates are going down, but it's actually the opposite. So even though those key factors are indicating that we should have lower rates, in reality, rates are going up because of all this uncertainty. Banks are scared, right? That's the bottom line. So they don't know, how many defaults are going to be coming, up, and so they're pricing, their rates accordingly. So, as I said, we are an essential service, so the banks will be open. But what we have found is that even some of the branches that are out there have been closing down because of isolated cases within those branches. So keep that in mind. We're seeing this affecting some of our private lenders as well. So we've had private lenders that, have had to travel like an hour and a half to get to a branch just to transfer funds to close a deal. And we've also seen that some of our private lenders have actually been quarantined and unable to lend money. So one of the key things is that although it's, quote unquote, business as usual, things are slower than what they used to be. We've got people working from home. There's a bit of difference in that regard, and then as well, just with all these changes, things are moving at a slower pace, and everybody's trying to adapt. So it is business as usual, but expect that there are going to be some slowdowns.
Emil, I do want to ask you, this whole mortgage deferral, concept for real estate investors specifically. Is it going to screw us over when we want to buy another property or refinance, or is it as good as they say?
Well, so I'm going to get into it a bit more in the next question, and that's one of my, so do you want me to wait for the next question, or or do you want me to answer now?
Let's if you could give a quick answer, let's answer now.
Yeah, for sure. So right now, it's from what they're telling us, it's not going to affect us, right? It's not going to affect our credit rating, but I can guarantee you that lenders are keeping track. Right. So if you're the first one that's asking for a deferral, and maybe you don't necessarily need it, they're going to be taking note of that. And first of all, they may not be, even letting you have the deferral, but they're also going to be, it's going to be on your file, right? So it's something to keep in mind. You know, don't expect it to affect your credit at all, but you know, there could be some implications down the road. And the bottom line is that we don't know.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for clarifying a little bit. All right, who wants to go next and share some insider industry insights? Dan?
Yeah, you know what? I want to springboard a bit. So I'll quickly clarify for insurance because we're getting a lot of questions specifically from small businesses and from real estate as well. If there's going to be any coverage afforded under essentially this pandemic, which the large scale answer will be no. However, I always recommend if you are in a position where you need help to reach out to your insurance broker or agent to find out if there will be coverage available to you. And then second, a pointer that I thought I would springboard off Emile. While they say as a whole they are not doing this, I have noticed if you are in a pinch as a real estate investor when it comes to paying your insurance on time, some of the companies may defer your payments same as they will the mortgage for up to 2 to 3 months, or find ways to delay and then break down the payments evenly over the remainder of the year to try and help out investors and other people, knowing that everybody is in a difficult position.
That's great insight. Question for you, just a follow-up question. There's probably some people with a rider for rent or something along those lines that I've heard of before, where you can add something that if your tenants don't pay, you can claim that you're not getting rent. Does this apply in cases like this? And what is that exactly?
So there's a product where essentially you can buy, and I would say 99% of the general public does not have it because it's too expensive and it's not sold through main broker channels or agent channels. Essentially says that there's a long list of reasons that they would essentially, they'd reimburse you for your lost rent for claims that are not covered, which is not typical, meaning, so for example, if your tenant just leaves because they're summoned for the military or something, this policy will then kick in and provide coverage. Would it provide coverage for this type of pandemic? I would suspect so. I have just personally never sold this product, and I don't know, I guess, as much about it as I could. I just know when we investigated using a product, it's very expensive on a month-to-month basis. So the majority of investors that I've ever worked with don't have it. I can't actually think of one that would have it, to be honest.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for answering that.
No problem.
Who wants to go next?
I can jump in.
Perfect.
So a lot of the questions that I've been receiving in the last few days here relate to, as business owners, we've seen a variety of press releases now in terms of how different government programs may be assisting us, particularly if we've got employees working with us. And so the thing we've been trying to emphasize is, one, like even yesterday, a couple of the programs completely changed, and they changed by press announcement. And so trying to remind people that as much and as hard as I do truly believe the Department of Finance and Revenue Canada, for example, are working at this, they don't necessarily have a lot of advance notice. So a lot of the changes that are coming into place, actually, they've been quite forthright in saying, we don't even know what the rules are yet. We know conceptually that the Prime Minister has announced this, that, or the other thing. We don't have anything on paper. So they are driving towards having a portal in place that people will be able to apply for different programs. That portal does not exist today. They are committing to having that in place in April, and they are fuzzy with respect to if that's the first week or the last week, of course. But again, from what we've seen, that they're trying really, really hard to put these things into place. And so as much as I would like to help some people in terms of describe exactly what that is, quite honestly, those rules don't exist today. But I think it's important for people to kind of keep on track as to what some of those are. And from we've seen as well, which are a little bit more concrete, some of the deferral opportunities. So an individual that owns real estate personally, they have a proprietorship, partnership, etc. As a personal taxpayer, our deadlines have been extended. The catch One is we don't know when the taxes are going to be owing. We know that it will not be before August 31st. We do not know how far beyond that taxes may be owing. The other catch is I would encourage people to bring their materials electronically into their advisors, in that most accountants are geared up to work from that January to April time frame with personal taxes. Come May 1st, I know for myself, and I don't think I'm that different from many other firms, that I will lose the majority of my team to either be working on corporate taxes, there'll be co-op students returning to school, or what may possibly exist as school. I won't have capacity if everybody says, hey, I'll just wait for another month. I have no ability to do those tax returns in May, just physically impossible. So please trying to, my encouragement would be ignore the deadlines. Yes, there'll be a handful of people that need to use those deadlines, but please ignore them. Get the materials in, get it in electronically. And again, I doubt if we're any different than a lot of other businesses, but we, as we get any type of paper information, it goes into a separate quarantine. So we can't have our people touching paper or physical materials for a period of time during this. So again, we're really encouraging the electronic side of things. Last point I would say is, and again, I certainly don't want to sound like a vulture, but clearly there's opportunities that present themselves whenever there's problems, another door opens. So unquestionably from a tax side, opportunities certainly exist, particularly if somebody's portfolio, whether stock market based, real estate based, has declined. There's quite honestly some awesome opportunity from an estate and succession planning perspective, particularly assuming that you believe that we're going to go through a rough patch and there are going to be some people that are really hurt, but for the most part going to emerge. We just don't know whether that's 2 months, 6 months, 12, 24 months, whatever that is from now, but there are still some opportunities. So now's the time to address that.
Awesome, thanks. Do you foresee them doing something along the lines of, like, if somebody has to sell an investment property, that they can defer some taxes, you know, potentially over a few years rather than I don't know, is there something like that coming, or there's not a whole lot of help for investors that are trying to sell potentially this year?
There's help in the sense of a deferral for a period of time. Right now, that has been undefined. So what they're suggesting at this point is that they, again, on the personal side, for example, will say that it's going to be no sooner than August 31st. But they haven't identified what that timeline is. I would be shocked if it's for greater than 12 months time. Not that I have any insider information with respect to that, but most of the programs that we've seen from a federal provincial perspective, I mean, they're portrayed as cash injections. I would suggest most of them are deferrals. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I don't mean it in that fashion, but just to say, for most of us, there's still going to come time to pay the piper. And let's not forget, even with, and maybe Emil will correct me, but again, I'm pretty confident if I go 6 months without paying the bank, they're not going to forgive those payments. They're just going to tack on some interest at the end of that. Revenue Canada is saying, okay, we're not going to charge interest for a period of time or penalties, but it's not like they're saying, hey, we don't want our money. They're just giving us a little bit more runway with respect to that timeline we have to pay that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, George. All right. Kayla, do you want to go next?
Okay. Where do I start? How long do I have?
All right. What do we need to know as real estate investors? What's the pressing insider information right now that we should know?
So as everyone knows, there is a massive panic mode for a lot of landlords, especially our small to mid-sized landlords, who are really nervous for multiple things. One, we have our elected officials. They will come out and they will say, don't worry about your rent. No one's getting evicted. The LTV is closed. It's food trumps rent. And these are headlines that are getting broadcast right across CP24 and every media outlet that's out there. So when we have our tenants on the other side who they're panicked and they're in chaos and they're losing their jobs, just as landlords are losing their jobs, they start to look around to, you know, what's going to be looking for support, what's out there, what's going to be happening. And we're finding that they're following this, though some of them are seeing this movement of a rent strike. Now we have good tenants. I know there's a whole bunch of good ones out there, so I don't want to panic anyone about this rent strike, but we do have to take that into consideration because of the fact that we've already had chaos. We had a crisis in our housing industry before the pandemic, and now it's turned into chaos because all of our justice systems, everything that we've known is now on hold. And we have a lot of landlords who are technically still stuck in limbo. You know, they were just about to get their eviction, so they already wasted their rainy day fund. Our job now as Ontario Landlords Watch to bring landlords from all over Ontario into a Facebook group so that we understand the issues and we understand the solutions that we want to bring to these elected officials. And we try to get to our elected officials and give them a model that works for the landlords and it works for the tenants. And the only thing that we can really justify now is that a rent bank is needed. This is not about landlords versus the tenants versus the landlord. And that's why the tenants are trying to do really hard and stop the rent coming to the landlord as a protest. But instead, we need to be advocating for some relief funds, similar to what has happened in BC, where they now give out an extra $500. And like the panelist said here, we do have some relief packages coming. It's supposed to be up around the April 6th, and then it's going to be a 10-day time frame in which that funds will be given to the people who are applying for some type of relief. Now, saying that, our problem as landlords, and with this growing movement of not paying your rent and the panic, we're a little concerned that the rent may not go into the landlord. So we go back into having that rent bank and having it directed to the landlords, because what we're going to see as taxpayers is that if someone is getting this money and they're not paying their landlord, and the landlord and tenant board does open up, and that will be a backlog because there's already backlogs, we can see them now tapping into other government agencies to bail them out once again. So it's really important to understand what this pandemic has taught us. And it understands that, one, it's our healthcare providers, it's our first responders. We have our food, that is something that is what we need. We also have our utilities, and we also have our shelter. So we need to have our elected officials respecting landlords for what we are, because 43.7% of the housing stock is the private landlords, and 39.3% is the corporations, which are still small landlords. We've always been saying that small landlords are the solution to creating affordable housing if that's what they want to look at, because this is a supply and demand issue. But they're giving us a tool bag and there's no tools inside of it. So what's going to happen after this pandemic is going to be an overhaul of the LTB, because there's no way they're going to be able to sustain the amount of applications that could be coming to the board. And we do have to prepare ourselves that we were waiting almost a year for evictions now based on the delays. We have to foresee that that could be even longer if our adjudicators are working out payment plans once we finally do get into our day in court. With saying that, we also want to just make sure that people understand that the LTB is still taking on applications for illegal act or safety. I don't know why, if you can't enforce it. So another solution from our government is that the operating cost that comes from the landlord and tenant board, those funds should be put into this rent bank. We also have rent banks that are around all year round, not just through a pandemic. And we want to try to get the funds from that and get it into the landlord's hands as well, because normally our tenants would go into the rent bank and they would be able to give their statement showing that they're in a hardship situation, and then it gets directed right to the landlord. So we want to tap into those type of funds. But these people and the elected officials, they need to know that they're causing chaos and panic, and they've pretty much caused the rent strike that's happening. We want to just get them to say, you know, you got to give relief to the landlords now to protect this current supply of housing, not just for now, but for after the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not to say that it's going to happen necessarily to everybody. There's great tenants out there. I've got a tenant that's offering to pay 2 months in advance. I've got another tenant that sent me an email and she's like, or a message, and she's not going to be able to pay the whole thing, but she's going to try to do what she can. So not all tenants are bad, right? But I think there is a little bit of a concern in Ontario, and I don't know if the other places as well, that they're saying, you know what, even if you have the money, don't go ahead and pay, keep it. And I think that's part of the concern that's happening right now. So where can we go to find out like the latest information on what is happening?
So I'll put a link in our group so people can find it in the chat group right now. Just mention in the group that you were on the Reite Club webinar, so I can get you into the group a lot faster. But what we need to be doing is, one, we're still going to be lobbying our MPPs, and I keep telling people it's not just me as a voice. I want to teach you what I do, so that we can go ahead together. And we can't. A lot of people are asking me now, do we have a letter, like a generic letter that we can be sending that goes in the garbage? They need personalized situations, your solutions. They'll put it in the garbage if they see something coming into their email on a regular basis. And to the question that we had in here about a lawyer, right now we had a lawyer who states that we can do an appeal to the court order that prevented landlords from getting evictions. But again, it comes down to, as landlords, we are not hurtful people. We do not want people evicted at this time at all because of the virus that is happening. It's just about providing the relief. And again, just to get on the phone call with them, you're looking at $600 just to be able to talk to a lawyer. But what we are advocating for now is about that relief. And then we have to work on the future problems that the Landlord and Tenant Board is going to happen.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Ryan, what about you? What insider information, what insights can you provide? And do you have any suggestions on what Kayla just mentioned as well?
Well, just generally speaking, before I kind of comment on landlord-tenant situations there, I mean, it's surprisingly business as usual for us at the moment. We're still doing many, many closings. Thankfully, we're able to get them all done on time so far. I mean, as Emil said, it's a little bit of a patience, adaptability. Everybody has to be cooperative. It's funny, lawyers in general are obviously fairly acrimonious sometimes towards one another, always trying to battle and that kind of thing. But with all of this going on, the bars actually really come together. So there's lots of collegiality out there, a lot of cooperation to make things work, which is really, I think, promising for people who want to try to keep as much of a normalcy as possible in a very unusual time. With real estate in general, I mean, I think we're not going to see on the legal side the impact until probably a month or two, because we're usually 30, 60 days behind the rest of the process. Realtors would have to slow down for us to see a slowdown, but our slowdown won't be for a while. But actually the surprising part in the 2 weeks that we've kind of been observing COVID and what's been happening in the world, we're actually seeing more inquiries for real estate opportunities.
Interesting.
People are actually saying, okay, well, the stock market's not giving me any return. I only lost like 30 grand. But if I do a private loan and it's a good borrower and it's a good property for security, I'm going to get that 9%. I'm going to get that 10%. That is guaranteed. It's coming to me. So private lending has been an interesting conversation with people. I'm not advocating that go out and everybody be a private lender. I'm advocating do your due diligence, just like you needed to do before COVID. But you got to do that even more so now, because you really got to know your loan to values. You got to know your equity in the property and so forth. I mean, the other thing we're obviously getting a lot of inquiries about, which is a bit unfortunate, because I think it's a little bit of panic out there, but a lot of wills and estate questions, obviously. So if people do have those concerns, which is normal, I think, given everything that's going on, get in touch with your lawyer. We're happy to help, but it's certainly something that we deal with on a regular basis, but that's a spike for sure. There's a lot of people that are asking about that, and we're getting a lot of work in that area. I mean, the other thing that we're dealing with is the landlord questions, and it's a really difficult thing to address and answer because everything's closed, right? So, you know, if you're acting for landlords and you're trying to support them, and you've got them asking questions about, well, what do I do if, you know, tenants aren't paying, or how do I deal with my tenants? You know, it's again very hard because you don't have that arena in which to try to enforce if there is a problem, right? Like where are you going to go with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's kind of stuck and frozen, so it's really hard to give them any sort of advice which then has any real effect and practicality to it, because it's like you might be giving them perfect advice and then it might be the actual law and this is the way it is, but then where do they go with it? You know, you're going to look like a pretty bad person if you throw people out on the street. So,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? It's really tough. It really is unprecedented that way, and I think it kind of goes back to the original point of be cooperative. You know, go talk to your tenants proactively. I think it was in one of the other sponsors piece. I think Arthex might have had it, but you know, get out there and proactively talk to your tenants to basically say, okay, how are you guys doing? Like, how's everybody? Still working? Did you get partially laid off? Like, how is everybody doing with everything? Right? That's a lot of work, but especially if you have lots of tenants and properties. But you know, that's what it's going to take during this kind of time. You got to put in the effort to try to proactively prevent problems from happening.
Absolutely. So I have one quick question for you. Somebody's got a property that's closing, or either they're selling or they're buying, and they want to back out in a time like this. What's your take on it?
Well, I mean, what's the reason? Is it just because COVID happened, or is there some other legal reason for it, right? I mean, again, at the end of the day, if you and I are doing a deal together, I'm selling, you're buying, we wrote the deal prior to COVID happens, I'm ready to sell. I've signed all my documents. I've given over the key and trust to my lawyer to exchange with your lawyer, and now we're waiting for you to exchange documents and money, and you just are saying, I mean, I could do this deal, but I don't want to. You can make that decision, but there'll be consequences, right? Unless the courts, make rulings, which who knows when that will be, because they're not open to hear these things at this point in time. But if I then put the property back up on the market to mitigate my losses and I sell for 50 grand less, you're going to be having a lawsuit probably there for 50 grand plus costs. So you really have to look at why are you not closing? Is it because you literally cannot get a mortgage because you lost your job? Okay, that things start to make some sense there, and then there might be some legal or potentially rational reasons why maybe you can walk away from that. But it's very hard to walk away from a legal contract.
Right.
It's just difficult.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for answering that. So what is one tip of advice for all of you guys? One piece of advice that you can suggest investors do in times like these?
I mean, I would just say continue to be proactive in this kind of situation. There's always a silver lining out there. There's lots of opportunities still. It's about working together, be cooperative, work with your power team. So work with all your professionals, like your real estate coach, your mentors, your brokers, your mortgage agent, your accountant, your insurance lawyer, like work with everybody, as we've always said pre-COVID, but really lean on them now. This is when you really need to lean on people who, specialize in very unique areas. Yeah. Utilize their professionalism and partnership, and you'll be fine. It's just take your time, maybe a little bit more than we usually do, and rely on people and just continue to adapt.
Awesome, thank you. So we've got a few minutes left for this. I'd like to hear a quick word from the panel on final, one key takeaway. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Key takeaway
My
from-
suggestion.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
No,
my
no.
suggestion is focusing on cash flow. So I mean, cash flow is, most investors are abundantly aware, is always enormously important, but now more so than ever. And now there's multiple ways that be important. And to echo Ryan's comments, say it's not just the accountant, it's not just the mortgage broker, the insurance side, et cetera, et cetera. It's a team thing, and working with and understanding, okay, how can we work with the tenants? What can we do in a productive fashion without getting hopefully walked over? And I know we've reached out to our property managers, reaching out to the tenants and whatnot, trying to appreciate that not everybody's going to be in a position to pay, but the vast majority still are. So let's get into that conversation and have a partnership as compared to an adversarial relationship.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, I can say a couple of words. Is my opinion is be cautious and keep informed. Right, things are changing daily, and the advice that's given today may not be applicable tomorrow. Make sure you're keeping informed. Like Ryan and George have said, keep in touch with your power team. Right, they're the ones that are in the business doing this day in and day out. They're going to know what the changes are. Right, and also just with the deferral programs and stuff, just touch real lightly on that. Be cautious with that, right? It's really meant for people that are in need, right? So don't automatically go out and ask for deferrals. If you can handle it, right? Talk to your tenants, be proactive, like a lot of the other people have been saying. Yeah, that's my final words.
Awesome. Thanks, Emil. Who's next?
My tip for everyone that's on tonight is about getting very heavily involved in how politics influence the real estate industry, and get involved. These people are paid by you, the taxpayer, and they have a duty to listen to your concerns and the issues. And it's about getting the solutions to them and be a part of the solution and not the problem. And that would be my heavy, because we just wait for them to give us the news that's on that's on the TV. But instead, you need to be contacting them by phone, by email, and then spreading the word to other investors to join forces and to create a better system that's not only good for good landlords, good tenants, and of course the taxpayers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as investors, we really, really have to, we've got groups, and let's we're not just by ourselves, right? We have a team, of people. We have a mortgage broker, we have an accountant, et cetera, et cetera. But we really have to also be a team where it comes to making changes politically to change these rules and regulations where, in a way, they're not fully fair to landlords, right? If you have a tenant that wants to screw you over, unfortunately, it's going to take you a really long time. And Harry's going to be talking about that as well. But, let's work on joining forces, in my opinion, with Kayla to really help each other get to that next step where I think we need to go. And Kayla's been doing this for many, many years, but I think it's time that, in a time like this, and it's not against, tenants, but it's like, let's just make sure that we do the right thing for everybody. So if you guys can join the Facebook group, Kayla is going to, let us know what is next. The tenants, hey, they do a really good job grouping together and fighting their fight. And it's not about fighting. It's about doing the right thing for everybody. So awesome. Thank you so much. Who's next?
I'll go ahead quickly. A lot of points have already been touched on. Emil and George did as well. From someone who sees quite a few tenant vandalism claims, because they are covered under the package that we support for the Reite Club, typically all of them that go wrong are where there's a lack of communication with the owner, the landlord, and the tenant. So George mentioned it quite clearly. Get out in front of it, build a relationship, have one with your tenants. I think it's important right now to show some empathy for the ones that really do need the help. Obviously, it's the investor's money and it's the investor's property that they're giving up. But from my experience, if you can show some empathy and do good for your tenant, it's really good in the public eye, and it's typically a better thing for everyone. So I think now more than ever, it's really a good time to I'm going to say partner with your tenants and be on the same page so that you can help them out if they need, if you're able to.
Awesome. Okay. And who hasn't talked yet? Emil?
Yeah, no, I said, you know, basically be cautious, right? Things are changing every day. And echoing, you know, a lot of what's already been said, right? Make sure that you're keeping in contact with your tenants, and if you can avoid the deferral, I would say avoid it, right? It's, you know, we don't know exactly how banks are going to be treating it. And those programs are meant for those that really need it, right? So, and the thing is, if you look at it, if everybody took advantage of those deferral programs, like, you know, what's going to happen to the banks, right? They're going to be in, you know, in a pretty bad situation, which is then in turn going to make, you know, put us in a bad situation as well. So, yeah, you know, keep in touch with your power team is one of the biggest ones.
Awesome. I think everybody went. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, team of experts. You provide some great insights, and it's always important to get our information from those that are doing it, that are in the industry and that are investors themselves. So thanks for being on the panel and providing the great insights. Next up, Daniel is going to introduce our next speaker. And guys, everybody will have the opportunity to reach out to our panelists, and that information will be available as well if you have other questions. All right, Daniel, you're up.
Okay, well, oh, 1 second before we get to Harry. So one thing we forgot to do at the beginning, Paul, can you get back to the picture where we see everybody else in the video that was just speaking? Thank you. Yes, so there are a lot of people. There's 400 people on right now, and there's a lot of people who are new to the club. So quickly here, because you may not know who was talking. So your host was Sarah Larby. She's one of the co-founder of the Reite Club. She's the millennial real estate investor. She's a speaker, she's a mentor, and she's a master of the BRRRR method. Ryan Carson, of course, founder of Carson Law, specializing in real estate law. He works a lot with real estate investors. Dan Tetzlaff, Dan the Man, with Hub International, specializing in, well, is an insurance broker, but he loves working with real estate investors. George Duby, with BDO Canada, partner and accountant with the large real estate investing specialization. Claire Drage is the founder of a Windrose Group, but there was some technical issues for her this evening. So in her place, Emil Jelinek, who is a mortgage and a financial expert. And finally, we had Kayla Andrade. At least that's how I pronounce it, because it sounds like French, Andrade. She's the president of the Ontario Landlords Watch. And those were the people who were our experts to give you the information that you need right now.